to the Yellowjackets Hive. I'm Media and Melanie here with,
And I'm Emily.
and we're back with another exclusive video for our partners at Cord Cutting. Be sure that you're subscribed to Cord Cutting on YouTube and bookmark cordcutting.com/yellowjackets-hive so you don't miss any of our exclusive content just like this.
Mhm. Yes, we've got lots coming out in the next couple weeks.
And speaking of things that are coming out, Survivor Season 45 has now aired for the last couple of weeks on CBS. And we thought it would be really fun to discuss Survivor and Yellowjackets, how they're similar, and which of the adult Yellowjackets we think would actually win Survivor. Why don't we just start with the description of Yellowjackets? A wildly talented high school girls soccer players descend into savage clans after their plane crashes in the remote northern wilderness. And what gets me there is clans.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
similar to Survivor, who, of course, it's a castaways who are put on competing tribes. So it starts out as a team game and then goes to an individual game as it goes through. But tribes, clans, we're already getting somewhere. We see some similarities right off the bat.
yeah, it's
In the
true.
premise of Survivor, outwit, outplay, and outlast. And if you look at Yellow Jackets with those three words, we can definitely see some similarities there. Outwit, Emily, what
Mhm.
is something in Yellow Jackets you think that they're trying to outwit in the teen timeline?
They're all trying to outwit the idea of being sacrificed in a way,
That's
because
right.
nobody wants to be next. I mean, that's the last thing anybody wants, and the way that they do it, I don't know if you would call it democratic with the cards, but they have a system in place. And nobody wants to pull that card. That's the last thing they want.
Nobody wants to pull that card. And along with that, it's almost as if pulling any other card besides the Queen of Hearts means that you're getting an immunity idol, which is another factor
Yeah.
on Survivor. They have hidden immunity idols, which makes one player safe. So
Yeah.
it's the opposite in Yellow Jackets a little because each person who draws those safe cards essentially
Mhm.
have immunity. The one unlucky person, of course, does not have immunity and they are then put into the hunt. And we could say that that's being outplayed by the rest of
Oh,
the
yeah.
group.
Mhm. Yeah. Pit Girl was definitely outplayed.
Oh, she sure was, and outlasted for that matter. So outwit,
Yeah.
outplay, outlast. We talked a little bit with Nicholas Holterman of Cord Cutting in our episode on Play in Yellow Jackets about do we even really want a clear winner for this game of survival?
Yeah.
And who will outlast who? Of course, we know there's winners and losers. Some people survive, some people don't. But there's a clear similarity to the elements of Survivor and Yellow Jackets as a whole with the outwit, outlast, outplay.
Now, you brought up the immunity idol for Survivor. I can't remember, do they pass it to a different person every week? Is that how it works on
So
Survivor?
there's two ways you can get an immunity. If you have an immunity idol, that means you find it out in your camp somewhere typically or solve some sort of puzzle and have it. Most of
Yeah.
the time it's in secret, so the other players may not know you have it, so it gives you some power.
Yeah.
Sometimes people do know that you have the immunity idol and have to be a little more strategic in terms of voting you out. Now, the teams and individuals can also earn immunity in physical challenges.
Yeah.
And if we're looking at physical challenges as one of the big components of Survivor, having a physical game, you can also look at Yellow Jackets in that aspect.
Yeah.
You
For
have to
sure.
have some sort of physical prowess in order to survive out there. Now, we can look at Nat being the hunter
Yep.
as
That's where I was
something
gonna go.
very
Mhm.
physical. She's out there making a difference, taking these long walks, doing something, and adding value to herself as a player.
I mean, her and Travis carried that deer that they carried back to camp, like, had to be a couple 100 pounds. So, for them to even do that, they had to have a lot of strength and teamwork to work together in order to get it back.
And along with the physical challenges, establishing yourself as somebody who's useful. And that can mean,
Mhm.
aside from just physicality, being useful when you're at camp. A lot of people on
Yeah.
Survivor end up just sitting around, not doing anything, not contributing. They're not out fishing, for instance, or
Yeah.
gathering firewood. You need to be physical in challenges and you need to be physically and mentally present in order to
Mhm.
earn credibility for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't watched Survivor regularly in a long time, but when I did, that was one thing that I remember. The people that didn't help were obviously the people that were voted off first because you have to pull your weight. Very similar to Jackie.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
We saw what happened to her when she was not contributing at camp or the
Mhm.
cabin, in this case of Yellow Jackets. And we all saw what happened to her. And that was the wilderness's way of voting her out, if you will.
Yeah. Because I mean, other than carrying that bucket of water, you don't see her doing anything to contribute to helping the group find food, find shelter.
No.
She complained more than anything else.
And Shauna really tried to help her step
She
it up and
did.
said, "Look, Jackie, you've got to do something to prove your worth out here." And unfortunately, the message did not get across. Her holding a seance was not enough of a contribution for the group.
Yeah.
And we saw everything really spiral out with Jackie. So,
I very much felt like the seance was like her last ditch effort to have them all reunited and following her lead.
mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it should be noted on Survivor that there is a jury at the end of the game. The final players have to convince a jury that they are worthy of being the sole survivor. And similar to Yellow Jackets, there's not an official jury, but there sure is a jury or a group of your peers who are judging
Mhm.
every single thing you do, and your actions may or may not lead to your safety out there. So you want to be the sole survivor and
Yeah.
actually survive, like, living and making it out of the wilderness. It's not just a game for $1,000,000 here. They're playing for keeps.
Yeah. For Survivor, the jury, at the very end, when it's down to the last 2 players, the jury is composed of all of the people that were voted off prior, right?
Yes, not everybody. It starts at a certain point. I believe there's 12 on the jury. So it's also important to be, if you're sending somebody, voting somebody out of the game, then if they're going to be on the jury, of course you need to take that into consideration for your game. But
Survivor's a lot of, like, mind games too, not just physical. Allies and stuff like that, and that was one thing that I remember very much so from watching Survivor, was the dynamic between all the players and watching them form relationships and alliances and doing it to stab other people in the back.
some of the adult Yellow Jackets would be better than others in terms of social game.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Misty, she would be one that would have way too many alliances. She'd get herself caught in some sort of story, and she's not great at masking either. So
No.
I don't think that she could be effectively convincing for all these different alliances.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, we have somebody like Lottie, who is the legit head of a cult on Yellow Jackets. She's very good at fooling people into buying
Yeah.
into whatever her vision is. So I could see her having a strong social game as well.
Yeah, people
And
follow her.
they do, and that speaks volumes in Survivor. And Shauna is maybe one of the most deceptive of the Yellow Jackets, and I do think
Yeah,
she'd have a strong social game because of her ability to deceive and allow people to believe what it is that they want to believe. So I can see her
I
having a
could
pretty
see
strong
that.
social game too.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
And Ty, I think she'd be good, but at the same time, somewhat overpowering. Of course, you also need a resume and to make a big move in Survivor. And one could argue Ty advocating for the group to go and try to get rescued when, of course, the wolf attack happened. That was a leadership thing. That was a big move. So that could.
And Laura Lee with the plane too even.
Oh, big move. If Laura Lee
Yeah,
had gotten off of there, she would have been crowned sole survivor 100%. Unfortunately, we know it did not go that way, but that was a
yeah.
big move, a big wilderness move.
How do you think Coach Ben would fare in Survivor?
Oof. So some seasons of Survivor have this thing like an isolation island situation where you get sent off and you're isolated, or there's various components of this. So I feel like Coach Ben would be on, he probably would have gotten voted out pretty early because he's a minority amongst the group of women in the case of Yellow Jackets.
Yeah,
But also, I think that he'd end up somehow in isolation, just like he is on Yellow Jackets. I don't think he
yeah,
would win, but I do think he'd get voted off pretty early and perhaps end up in this isolation situation as they do on some seasons of Survivor.
I would agree with you.
Another part of Survivor, we have tribal councils where, of course, each
Mhm.
week they meet and people are voted off. And on Yellow Jackets, we have our cannibal council. And the principles of gathering around a fire to make decisions or maybe celebrate a meal, just visually to me, says Survivor Yellowjackets. I think
Yeah,
those two are similar.
I agree. I could see similarities.
Another important part of Survivor are the puzzles. And this is something we've talked about a lot is Misty would dominate the puzzle game. We of course see her death scene with Travis when she is able to
Yeah.
slay this, put the pictures together and realize that all of these make a picture of the larger symbol. Now, we could also say that Nat was effective at this because of course and Van for that matter too, they discover the symbols on the trees
Yep.
and then they all put the map together, which
Yep.
of course maps out the larger symbol within the wilderness itself.
Mhm.
So, we have a couple of good puzzle players out there. Anybody else, Emily, that you could see really dominating in the puzzle?
Well, I would have to agree that I think Misty would be the best at it, just for the reasons that you just said. They show her piecing together that symbol over those pictures of Travis so quickly, like,
Too quickly.
yeah, like, she already knew it was there, and or at the same time, I feel like it might have been easy for her to figure it out because out of all of the people in the Yellowjackets that she is the one that's still looking for that kind of stuff in her life. Like, the other ones wanna forget it, they wanna move on from it, they don't wanna talk about it, but Misty very much still wants to be there. That was where she thrived.
Looking at this group, I mean, if you had them all on one tribe, they would be unstoppable.
I would be terrified. I would be absolutely terrified of them,
Yeah,
knowing what we know that they've done.
exactly, exactly. I can see Van having a pretty good social game as well,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
also think that Van is so nice. She'd be the one that everybody would want to take with her to the finals, and then she wouldn't end up getting the sole survivor title because
Yeah.
she might be maybe too nice and maybe didn't make as big of a move.
I was
But
talking to my mom about this earlier, about what Yellow Jacket she thinks would win Survivor, and she actually said Van because she said Van has 9 lives, so she would outlive everyone.
your mom is probably right. I mean, she would definitely have the good social game. She's very smart, so I can see her doing well at puzzles and all that. Physically, I mean, she's survived anything you can imagine from getting her face torn off to being on
Yeah.
fire to maybe now terminal cancer. So I can see that.
Has anyone in Survivor over the years been hurt during a physical challenge or anything like that?
There have been a lot of people who've been carried off of the game for medical reasons, whether it's being hurt or sometimes other medical situations, whether it's like anxiety or cardiac problems or something like
Yeah.
that. Actually, this season on 45, they brought back a player from, I believe it was last season, who was injured or had to leave the game. So it's nice that he's back for a second chance. But yes, that is
Yeah.
very common. Yeah. First, we have Jeff Probst out there as our
Mhm.
lovely TV host on Survivor. And while we do not have a host on Yellowjackets, we could consider Cabin Daddy and his rocker up there
Yeah.
being kind of our, hostess with the mostest. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, but he's kind
No,
of
it makes
overseeing
sense.
things a little, or somebody or it is overseeing things in the wilderness.
Yes. It is the Jeff Probst of the wilderness.
We've talked a little bit about the game of Survivor and what it takes to win in terms of physicality, alliances, earning immunity idols, the puzzles, making a big move. Emily, who do you think would have the best chance at winning Survivor?
She lives to adulthood. We don't know yet. I would go with Akila
Okay.
because Akila is very resourceful, as we know. She's a Girl Scout. We saw multiple times when they were out looking for food and stuff like that. She knew what plants were safe to eat, what mushrooms were safe to eat, what berries were safe to eat. So if you're trying to forage, she's your girl. Like, she's who you want with you because she'll be able to tell you if it's going to make you sick or not. And when you're looking for mushrooms to eat because you have no food, you want to make sure you're eating the right stuff so you don't get sick. And not only that, look at the way she stitched up Van's face.
Oh, oh my God.
I would count on her if I got hurt to be able to help me out of that scenario. And she just seems really smart. So I'm going to go with Tequila.
Yeah, I think that's a really good pick. I personally had a lot of trouble deciding. I was initially thinking Ty because she's smart, she's political, she
Yeah.
can be very physical, but then I thought she might be too overpowering. She might overdo it. People might get annoyed at that and they may not want to
Yep.
take her to the end. So for that reason, I'm going with Shauna. I think her game of deception is extremely strong. I think if she went on as a housewife, sometimes those characters on the show or players on the show are underestimated. And
Oh, yeah.
I think she'd be grossly underestimated. People would have no idea what they're dealing with. And of course, she's really great with a knife, which is
Yeah,
a
that's
valuable
true.
skill. She could probably start a fire. So
Yeah.
if I'm going for the $1 million winner, I think it would be Shauna. Not only that, the Sudeikis could really use the money. So
For sure, yeah. Furniture stores are not bringing in the big bucks these days.
no, no matter how many six packs Jeff's slinging out there, probably not enough to get Callie's meager college fund up. So yeah,
My second choice would definitely be Ty, because Ty is just such a fierce competitor that I know she would wanna win every challenge, and she would do everything in her power to win the physical challenges anyways, and she probably would because she was an athlete, she was really good at soccer,
yep.
and she's not dumb. I mean,
No,
she went to college, graduated from college, top of her class, which it takes a lot to do that. You have to work really hard to do that.
discipline, yep,
Yeah.
and
So she would be my second choice.
she's very comfortable in the outdoors, as we've seen her climbing trees and whatnot as
Yeah,
well, and again, God, look at the fierceness on her face. If we're talking about physicality and physical
yeah,
challenges, I mean, Ty is somebody that you do not wanna mess with. And
yeah,
let's
no.
not even consider if she's sleepwalking, what she would be doing to the poor animals out there. They wake up one day and there's just an altar of dead, like,
Oh god.
warthog heads or whatever they have out on the island that they're on, but
Now, on Survivor, it's on an island every year, right? Like, they're on a physical island?
I believe it's always an island, or if it's not an island, it's somewhere so remote and they're separated as tribes anyway that there's no going anywhere. So, essentially an island if it's not a physical island, yeah.
One pet peeve of mine is when people in the fandom say the girls are on an island.
Yes, they are most definitely not on an island, and in fact, they actually even say it in Yellowjackets. Ty says it when
We're
she's
not
wanting
on
to
an
lead the
island.
expedition. "We're not on an island, we've gotta hit something somewhere."
Yeah.
So, yes, that annoys me too. We would assume at this point everybody knows, but at the same time, not everybody is so deep into the hive of
The
Yellowjackets
casual
as we
viewers,
are.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
I'll
true.
forgive it with them.
Right, yeah. Yeah, but you regular viewers out there, there's no forgiveness. You should all know there's no
No.
island. What we want to know from all of you is, who do you think would win Survivor out of the adult Yellow Jackets, or a potential survivor who we've not seen yet in the adult timeline? We want to know. Do you think it's Shauna, Ty? Do you think Lottie could pull it out? What about Van? Misty wasn't even really a consideration in our talk about who would win. And I as much as I would like Nat to win as well, I just think that her personality wise, I think would be a big deterrent for her social game.
Oh,
So for
yeah.
me, Nat isn't a contender to win, even though she might dominate in other categories socially. I don't think
No,
she's making
no
it to the
way.
end.
Not a
No
chance.
chance. Yeah,
And same with Misty. The social game would I think would be a little hard for her because she doesn't understand social cues and she doesn't understand when something is appropriate and when something is not appropriate. So I think that would really hurt her in that sense.
exactly. So everybody, let us know. Who do you think would win Survivor out of the adult Yellow Jackets? Chime in, drop a comment. We've got to know. And on our radar, we would still love to speak to a former Survivor contestant. That opportunity comes up, you better believe we will be picking their brain.
Yeah, I would love to get one of their perspectives on this.
It'd be so much fun. We're trying to find one who's a fan of the show, but it's actually difficult finding a former Survivor contestant who also watches Yellow Jackets. We did get a lot of replies, though, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Richard Hatch, most notably, tried to watch it, opened his Paramount, and didn't have the Showtime add on, so couldn't watch it. But he might, and boy, that would be a good one.
I remember Richard. He's one of the very few I remember very vividly.
But until then, let us know who you think would win. Thank you for tuning in.
So, until we spill again.